Hello and welcome back to
The Zak
and Buzz
Review.
So, we watched In a Violent Nature at the cinema.
We did.
We had good reports to say that it was a new take on the slasher films.
Yes. On the kind of Friday the 13th.
Friday the 13th, very Friday the 13th.
Yes, this was very Friday the 13th. It was Friday the 13th with a bit of My Bloody Valentine in there because of the kind of the mask.
I mean, kind of.
Kind of.
Yeah.
I mean, it was loggers rather than miners, you know, but there you go. Yeah, anyway, this was Let's Walk a Bit. Then let's walk a bit.
It was this. Okay, to describe this, it was the scenic route of a horror movie.
Trees.
Yeah, I mean, okay, so you've got obviously an evil killer like Jason-ish kind of killer
Character.
with a backstory.
Johnny.
The backstory is spoken around the fire that
Yeah.
was meant to happen sort of in the about 100 years ago, which would have been in the early 1900s. This boy who is obviously got learning difficulties gets killed.
Who likes cars?
He likes cars.
Or toys, anyway.
Toys, yeah. He gets killed and then takes revenge on all the miners, and their body parts are found. And anyway, so that becomes like the local history.
Yeah,
of this
he's
place.
obviously been resurrected because his mother's locket has been stolen.
Yeah. Well, he's been resurrected before,
Yeah.
as we discover, and that the locket that we see at the beginning of the movie is holding him fast in the ground of the fire tower, isn't
Yes.
it? Which is a bit of an odd one, that one, because it was on the ground. I expected it to be like the fire tower up in
fire
They
tower.
kept calling it a tower, and it was like an old wooden shed. But there you go. Anyway, so
it's an indie film.
in a kind of a Blair Witch Project-esque way,
Circle around like those kids in the Blair Witch Project.
you hear voices, and you see a hand take this locket, and then you see our murdering zombie-esque Jason
Antagonist, and yet he's presented
come out the ground.
kind of in an obscure way. Kind of, he is the person you're following throughout the entire movie.
Yeah.
That is the style of the movie. It is you are following
Yeah.
the killer through
So
the movie.
instead of watching a movie where you are seeing the screaming girls running off through the woods, and in the background the very slow walking slasher is on his way, and then they keep running, and it doesn't matter how fast they go,
It always catches up.
they always catch up. This time the camera is behind the murderer, the slasher,
Yeah.
and and there are periods in this movie where it's like
It goes on
and on. Just let's watch the back of his head walk.
I can appreciate the stylized nature of this film. Don't get me wrong, but unfortunately, what the film suffers from is the trappings of its own rules.
It basically became boring to watch.
Yeah, and we couldn't really associate to the. I can't
characters.
call them heroic characters or anything because we didn't get associated to them at all.
Yeah,
we just discovered them.
They were just a group of Crystal Lake style
Campers.
20-year-olds.
Yeah.
And there was a ranger in there that does describe how his father had put this monster down before.
Yeah.
And they needed to get him back to the tower and get him back in the ground and put the locket there to hold him. But he cocked all that up totally, didn't he?
Yeah.
So he ends up in the log chopper. And the log chopper scene, I've got to say...
Okay, yeah.
Okay, this movie has got your practical effects
Down pretty well.
it's got you expecting something like this, you're going to get multiple different ways that people are going to die,
And there are a few inventive ways.
and
Yoga?
let's just say the yoga one was like made me laugh.
You know what? I think that the best way of describing that was the Upsilon bird.
Yeah, if you're familiar with
From Carry On
Up the Jungle. But anyway. Yeah. Anyway, so but then they had this log chopper, and our slasher character, who was known Johnny, goes into the woodshed and starts the motor up on this thing, and it is like this huge apparatus with the silliest little log chopping head on it that takes forever to chop a single log, and it's like, this is so over-engineered, this machine. I don't believe anybody would ever use it. They'll just say, I'm not doing this.
Unfortunately, sure, I think that scene especially was drawn out so much.
It was.
For like the slow decapitation of his arm and head.
Yeah.
Like as two separate like chops.
Yeah.
And this took up like 5 minutes of the movie.
And it was boring.
Yawn.
You know,
Unfortunately.
you knew what was coming, and the log chop was so slow, and it's like.
You thought it was going to get split down the middle. Actually, that's
Yeah.
what I thought going into this scene.
But it was other things in that scene, like when he drags the body. I mean, obviously you've got the actor in a bodysuit who's got a prosthetic arm that gets chopped off. And you can see the actor all the time. You can see his eyes moving and things. And then he walks forward and dumps the body onto the actual log chopper, where you can still see the guy's eyes moving. And then he walks in front of the camera, and you get that moment where the camera's completely blocked out black. And then you know that they've switched it for the animatronic one.
Right, for the chop.
And it's like, you could have done that better. You really could have done that better for the decapitation.
I feel as if, personally, it could have been a more uncertain chop, and certainly not as drawn out and slow.
Yeah, as
it
you
should
said,
have been a.
Yes, it would have been like a sudden spring-loaded.
Or maybe at that moment where you think it's going to go off, it runs out of petrol and doesn't.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah, or have a vertical chopper or something, which basically cranks itself up, and then, as you say, with a thunderous bang.
Yeah.
If you don't know when it's going to go off, but then it would have been comical if it run out of petrol.
Yeah.
And the monster is sort of like Johnny had tapped it and it's got like empty, and he's sort of like.
So beyond this point, we've got our two surviving characters.
Yeah.
Who we don't really.
I don't know who they are.
We don't really care about them.
Not in the
but they
slightest.
devise a plan off screen to deal with Johnny.
Here we go.
That immediately goes tits up.
We'll distract him.
And the guy gets absolutely annihilated with a hatchet.
And then there's a lot of chopping going on.
Chop! Chop! Chop!
For no particular... In fact, he does a far better job than the chopping machine, doesn't he?
Yeah.
You sort of think, if you need some log chops, give them to Johnny, because he's going to chop the logs far faster, and ain't going to cost you anything in petrol. So...
At which point, that plan goes awry, so the survivor puts the locket
Well, she has some petrol, doesn't she?
She has some petrol and a bear trap.
And a bear trap, because...
and she puts the locket on the petrol.
I think the plan was to probably get him into the tower, get him to step into the bear trap, set fire to him, and then chuck the locket in there.
And then she just runs off,
and then we get a running scene.
And we follow
her
running
some more.
And running some more. Run.
And a bit of screaming, maybe.
Yeah, and she's fallen over.
And then she wakes up.
She wakes up and she's got like
a stick through her
leg. Keeps mosey on through the forest.
Staggering.
Comes across a road.
Talk about the Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Bumps into someone, kind of Texas Chainsaw Massacre style, where it's like, help me type of deal.
This lonesome car comes along. We're all thinking the driver is going to take her back to Johnny.
Or some twist of that nature.
Or Johnny's going to be in the back of the car. Or Johnny's going to be in the back of the wagon.
Yeah.
Or Johnny's going to be
somewhere.
And she goes on and tells this most boring story.
About bears.
And eventually, I'm not surprised that the girl is losing blood. And supposedly she's kind of like trying to keep her awake, and then she sort of like passes out a little bit, and she doesn't want her to do that because they're meant to be going to the hospital. So she pulls the car up, and you get really honestly thinking, actually she probably has fallen asleep because your story is so boring. And then she jumps out of the car, and she's like, I've got a bandage, I've got to bind this up and stop you from bleeding.
But she's like, we got to go, quick.
And you're getting that view into the forest, and you're thinking, okay, Johnny's head's going to pop up any minute.
Come on, quick, come on, do it.
Nothing happens.
Literally nothing.
Happens.
The last 5 to 10 minutes of the film of just this filler bear story from this random person who's turned up at the last 5-10 minutes.
It's completely
pointless. It then cuts back to the locket being gone off of those.
Yeah, it cuts bits. Back. In fact, that was it. The camera slowly panned across, and you saw the bear trap, and then you saw the red petrol can, and the locket's gone. Yeah. And I audibly in the cinema said, "Yeah, that's the end of the movie." And bing, up come the credits.
Yeah.
It's like,
and literally, like, I kid you not, like, half an hour before, it was like, you can't just give him back the locket.
Yeah, that can't be. He can't be just giving back the locket.
But that's exactly what they did.
That's all he did. He just wanted the locket, and I presume he strolled back to his town.
Oh, and
Sleepy sleep.
There you go. So
there was one other thing I want to say about this. We did actually get to see Johnny's face, because a lot of these ones, they show the back of the head, and you get a lot of back of the head in this one, and you get fleeting glimpses. And I think in Friday the 13th, they always made a thing of sort of covering Jason's face, so you don't really always get to see his face.
Yeah. Well, this is his face.
Yeah, well, it's kind of like the classic figures. You might get a very brief.
Yeah. It's always a brief thing. Isn't it?
But this one, you get quite a elongated moment where he's sitting behind a tree playing with a toy car, and you're going, okay, the prosthetics pretty good. So prosthetics were good. The obviously practical effects were really good.
Yeah,
I love that, appreciate that. The camera, if you see this movie when they're in the car and that really boring drawn out bit at the end, they really need a stabilizer on the camera, because it was juddering so much it was getting out of focus.
Well, you can't really do that post film, really.
No, but it was a bit annoying watching it, thinking like, I bet the cameraman wasn't happy with the way this turned out. Anyhow, the fact is, it's actually really quite a boring movie.
Yeah.
Had a couple of giggles in it.
As I said before, it was trapped by its own rules. We're following the killer, and we can't get associated to anyone else. So why should we care?
I don't really think it. It wasn't a difficult movie for anybody to film.
Exactly.
I think any good amateur movie producer and director could have produced this. Maybe even to a better degree.
Burn!
It would have been nice if there had some better jump scares and things in it.
Yeah.
It
didn't really have jump scares in it at all.
I don't know quite what it was trying to achieve.
Exactly.
Exactly. So there you go. So that's it. It's a bit of a
violent nature.
Left us a bit flat on a scale of 1 to 10 when it comes to the slasher movies. Is it Jason Takes Manhattan, or is it right up there with I like Jason X. What's your favourite Jason movie?
Oh, blimey! Oh,
I think Jason versus Freddy is not too bad.
Freddy versus Jason. Oh yeah, Freddy versus Jason.
So anyway, on a scale of 1 to 10, I'm gonna give it a 2. It wasn't. Well, the practical effects were good, but it was not worth watching it for just the practical effects.
You know what? To be honest, it didn't exceed my expectations, but it kind of met them, and it was very, very trapped by what it was doing, and I can appreciate what it did, but
I can understand what it
could have been better.
Too much walking.
So. Well, he's got to move somehow.
I know, but it was just on. You know what I mean when you watch it.
Honestly,
if you watch it,
I've seen a lot worse slasher movies, but they've actually been more entertaining. So I'm going to give it a 3.
3. Oh, well, there you go. So it gets 2 from me, 3 from you. There you go. Combined score of 5, but it's still low down on the chart.
Oh, definitely.
If you want to see it, great. If you do see it, if you disagree, put it in the comments.
We would love to know if we are talking complete nonsense.
Then
let us know.
If you felt that it was really arty and that this was like,
if we didn't understand
what the director was trying to achieve here, and it was nothing to do with actually the movie itself.
It was all to do about. Teenage
angst
or something,
whatever, and the childlikeness
nature
of Johnny,
animalistic nature, of the bear person.
Anyway,
if you enjoyed this review, please like and subscribe to the channel and comment below any suggestions or further reviews you'd like to see.
And we'll see you guys back in the next one.